A late autumn dusk descended on Smithtown, bathing its facades in long, forlorn shadows. Harold, a silhouette against the reddening horizon, stepped off the bus into the gravel road. He was a picture of quiet resilience, a stoop-shouldered figure, gray-tinged at the temples, eyes gleaming with resolve, burnished by the fire of vengeance. As he trudged through the narrow, tree-lined streets of Smithtown, he observed the town's character, an outward quietude that whispered secrets. It was the sort of town where ivy-riddled stone walls held silent counsel with ancient oaks. An air of anticipation hung around the brick-paved lanes, and the pallid moonlight cast ghoulish shapes on the cobblestones. His first stop was the public library, its vast quiet interrupted occasionally by the rustle of turning pages and hushed whispers. He sought records that would shine light upon the Le Marchand Asylum, a monolith of despair that dominated the town's skyline. The librarian, a sharp-eyed woman named Doris, caught his attention. "Looking into the old asylum, are you?" she queried, glancing at his chosen material. He nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. "Some doors, once open, don't quite shut again." She looked him in the eyes, a steely seriousness replacing her earlier joviality. "Just be careful," she warned. He nodded, a silent promise to heed her words. He tucked into the worn journals and faded newspapers, each whispering tales of a past steeped in darkness. As he immersed himself in Smithtown's history, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Occasionally, his eyes would drift towards the window, locking on to the distant silhouette of the asylum. It loomed ominously, a quiet specter in the dying light of day. He felt a shiver of anticipation, an echo of his past traumas. With each passing hour, he pieced together fragments of the story. There were hints at bizarre treatments, and between the lines, he unearthed whispers of unexplained disappearances. A pattern began to emerge, a web that connected the asylum with the town's elite. Exiting the library, he walked the deserted streets, the late hour plunging the town into spectral silence. His mind was a tempest, memories of his past swirling amidst the newly acquired knowledge of Smithtown's hidden terrors. He had once stared death in the face, and now he felt the same cold tendrils of dread creeping up his spine. As he stepped into his temporary abode, a quaint inn called Morrow's Rest, the weight of his endeavor settled heavy on his heart. Tonight he would rest, but tomorrow he would step once again into the web that Smithtown had spun over centuries. He would shake the town until its secrets fell like ripe fruit, revealing the rotten core within. Tomorrow he would awaken, opening his eyes to the grim reality beneath the town's calm facade. This was the start of a descent into a world where cosmic horror was woven into the very fabric of reality, a journey that would force him to confront his deepest fears and awaken visions that straddled the border between madness and truth. The quiet before the storm had passed, and the echo of distant thunder announced the coming tempest. As dawn rolled over Smithtown, it bathed Harold's room in a watery light, pulling him from a deep sleep into the world of waking nightmares. The terrors of the night had not fled with the rising sun, but instead skulked in his mind's darker corners, vague yet persistent, like dust motes in a sunbeam. He navigated the day on autopilot, his mind wrestling with the chilling narrative he had begun to weave. A breakfast meeting with the mayor, a firm handshake, a steely gaze, then a visit to the sheriff's office, all stern expressions and evasive replies. A dark thread ran through these encounters, one he found hard to miss. It was during an afternoon walk around the park that the first vision struck. A sudden chill prickled his skin as a great shadow engulfed the serene landscape. In place of children's laughter and bird songs, he heard a deafening silence. The world twisted, the sky turning inky black as if night had prematurely descended. He blinked, and he was standing amidst a spectral forest, the trees ancient, gnarled, and whispering forbidden secrets in the cold wind. He staggered, his heart pounding in his chest, and then, as quickly as it had come, the vision receded, leaving him alone on a familiar park path. He found himself drawn again to the public library, seeking the solace of dusty bookshelves and whispered secrets. Doris, the sharp-eyed librarian, was there, her brows knitting together as he recounted his experience. Her face paled as he spoke, and she clutched her cross pendant, whispering a prayer under her breath. "The Le Marchand Asylum," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's not just a building, it's a vortex. They say those who look too deep into its past invite the shadows to look back into them." Armed with this unsettling revelation, Harold dove deeper into the asylum's past, tracing its connections to Smithtown's elite. He uncovered cryptic hints of grotesque experiments, of lives callously traded for scientific curiosity, a deadly waltz that danced on the edge of morality. But as his investigation deepened, so did his visions. At dusk, as he walked past the town's picturesque chapel, the hallowed ground morphed before his eyes. Instead of a place of worship, he saw a sinister altar, shrouded in twilight, attended by grotesque, shadowy figures. The stench of decay permeated the air, and the plaintive cries of the sacrificed echoed in his ears. The vision vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving him breathless, his heart hammering in his chest. He knew he was unraveling something monstrous, something that infected the very soul of Smithtown. The world as he knew it was splintering, giving way to the visions that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. But rather than retreating, he pressed on, knowing his quest for truth was far from over. As the day bled into night, he sat in his room at Morrow's Rest, nursing a stiff drink. He found no comfort in the darkness outside his window. It mirrored the one growing within him. A sense of foreboding loomed over him as he prepared for the coming day. The asylum beckoned, its dark secrets echoing in his ears, tugging at the hem of his sanity. Tomorrow he would dare its menacing threshold, stepping deeper into the abyss. Morning broke over Smithtown like a cracked egg, the bright yolk of the sun seeping into the overcast sky. Harold, despite a sleepless night, steeled himself for the day ahead. He was a storm-tossed ship headed for the perilous rocks, drawn inexorably by the twisted allure of the Le Marchand Asylum. The asylum sat atop a knoll on the outskirts of the town, its gnarled structure a haunting silhouette against the morning's dismal light. As he approached, he felt the air change, growing denser and colder. An oppressive silence lay thick, blanketing the forsaken building and the skeletal trees surrounding it. The doors creaked open at his touch, revealing a forgotten world cloaked in an almost palpable gloom. As he stepped into the labyrinthine corridors, the echoes of the asylum's malevolent past seemed to whisper from the decaying walls. Each room bore the stench of old fears and unshed tears. Each hallway was a testament to the atrocities committed in the name of curiosity and power. A shiver ran down his spine, as though he had walked through a specter, something cold and formless, yet undeniably present. His journey through the asylum was punctuated by disturbing visions. A rusted wheelchair dripped with dark, viscous ichor. Shadowy figures danced in an operating theater. In a padded cell, a spectral inmate clawed at the walls, their wails echoing in the dreadful silence. He saw, tasted, and smelt the horrors, a nightmarish tapestry woven into the very fabric of the asylum. Yet he pressed on, driven by a compulsion that merged dread with a thirst for truth. His path led him to a secluded room, its doors heavier, more foreboding. Inside, amidst scattered documents and age-old dust, he found it, the beating black heart of the asylum's corruption. The room was a shrine to a series of vile experiments conducted on the vulnerable, all backed by the town's elite. The terrifying realization hit him like a tidal wave. The asylum was not a place of healing, but a playfield for sadistic minds who dabbled in the dark edges of reality. But the cost of revelation was steep. His already turbulent visions grew more vivid, spiraling into a whirlwind of chaos that threatened to shatter his mind. He found himself trapped in a relentless storm of cosmic horror, every flicker of shadow a monstrous form, every silence a primal scream. Exhausted yet resolute, he staggered from the asylum as evening bled into the sky, the eerie building shrinking in his rearview mirror. His return to the Morrow's Rest was a haze, the town's quaint charm now a grotesque parody against the truth he had uncovered. He carried with him the darkness of the asylum, its echoes resonating with his own nightmares. As night fell over Smithtown, he sat alone, the taste of whiskey on his lips bitter like betrayal. Tomorrow he knew he would face the real monsters, the puppet masters of the asylum's dread past. But tonight, he was a prisoner of his visions, teetering on the brink of sanity, caught in the sinister symphony of the asylum's echoes. His journey was far from over, and the climax of his tormenting concerto awaited with the dawn's break. Morning light spilled over Smithtown, lending a macabre vibrance to the silent town. Harold, his sleep haunted by monstrous apparitions and chilling revelations, rose to meet his destiny. Today he would unmask the puppet masters, expose the gnarled roots that fed Smithtown's darkest sins. A confrontation with the town's elite was inevitable. He could already picture their masks of feigned surprise and their subtle attempts to twist the narrative. He prepared himself, a weary soldier strapping on his weathered armor. His evidence was solid, his resolve unshakable. In the town hall's imposing shadow, he faced the powerful few who had woven the town's dread tapestry. Their facade of respectability cracked under the weight of his accusations, each unveiled truth a hammerstroke on their guilt-ridden expressions. The mayor squirmed under his gaze. The sheriff's steely demeanor faltered. But Harold was not swayed by their protests or their futile attempts to deflect. The once quiet investigator had become an unstoppable force. Yet, amidst the storm he had stirred, the visions persisted. The grand hall warped into a nightmarish canvas of twisted forms, its occupants morphing into grotesque caricatures. His audience's denials were drowned in a cacophony of tortured screams from the asylum's spectral inmates. The very air grew dense with fear, a tangible manifestation of the cosmic horror that had come to inhabit his world. Despite the chaos, he found himself unafraid. He had looked into the abyss, and it had looked back, forever changing him. He had touched the raw, pulsating heart of cosmic horror and survived. The visions, once a torment, now served as twisted affirmations of his fight. They reminded him of the darkness he had dragged into the light, of the monsters he had unmasked. The confrontation ended in a heavy silence, their faces ashen, their arrogance replaced with shock and fear. Justice, Harold knew, would be slow, much like the town itself, but it was a seed planted. He had set the gears of retribution into motion. As dusk fell, he boarded the bus leaving Smithtown, his body worn, but his spirit unbowed. He watched as the town receded into the horizon, its facade now a thin veil over the dark underbelly he had exposed. He carried the weight of his experiences within him, an indelible mark on his soul. Yet as the distance grew, he felt the grip of the visions loosen. The monstrous forms retreated, the deafening screams faded, replaced by the hum of the bus engine and the gentle rustle of the night wind. The cosmic horrors, though not entirely vanquished, had been tamed, held at bay by his iron will. In his escape from Smithtown, Harold discovered he was not running from the inescapable. Rather, he was carrying it with him, a piece of a malignant puzzle nestled within his scarred psyche. He had plunged into the depths of cosmic horror and emerged, not victorious, but forever changed. His trauma and revenge had forged him into a beacon of resilience, his story a chilling testament to the horrors lurking beneath mundane reality. We appreciate you tuning in. If you fancied the content, show your support with a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to keep up with our eerie adventures. Eldritch Tales Factory has plenty more to offer. Until next time.